You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 589.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoors Station, the original podcast for self-powered travellers and those who desire a healthy outdoors lifestyle. In this episode, we're joined by YouTuber and adventurer Ryan Archer, who in 2023 took on one of Europe's most ambitious and scenic through hikes, the Hexatrek. Ever heard of it? No, neither had I. Stretching over 3,000 kilometres from the forested Vosges Mountains in the northeast to the rugged Pyrenees in the south, this trail weaves through 14 of France's most beautiful national parks, following the high mountain backbone of a country affectionately known as l'Hexagone. It's a path that connects 47 classic GR trails, linking together towering summits, ancient forests, pristine lakes, and some of the most picturesque villages you'll ever see, all in one epic route. What makes Ryan's story especially intriguing is that he jumped into this challenge with less than 4 weeks' notice. No detailed plans, no overthinking, just a lightweight setup, a sense of adventure, and a mindset of figure it out as you go. In this first of a two-part conversation, we hear how he discovered the Hexatrek, how he got to the trailhead, and what it was like to experience the wild, varied French landscape on a wing and a prayer. If the idea of through-hiking Europe has ever crossed your mind, especially with the US trail scene feeling increasingly complicated at the moment, this might just inspire your next big adventure. I'd like also to take a moment to thank James Kenny, who emailed me and suggested I talk to Ryan about the Hexatrek. And here we are in 2025, and it's the first time I've heard of it too.
There's a funny story how I heard of it, actually. At the start of 2023 in the spring, I was hiking the Israel Trail. And I'd always planned to hike the Israel Trail and then head back to the UK and hike the Wales Coast Path. And I think it was one evening on the Israel Trail, I was watching a YouTube video of the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail in America. And I just mentioned in the comments, this is my dream hike, because the Pacific Crest Trail is probably one of the world's best hikes. And I just said, this is my dream hike. I want to hike it one day. And someone left a reply and said, you obviously haven't heard of the Hexatrek. And I was like, what's the Hexatrek? So I Googled it, which brought me to the website. And as soon as I read it, I fell in love with it. I was like, I want to hike this. And then I was like, hike the Wales Coast Path or the Hexatrek? I set through France. So it was an easy choice to make. I did the Hexatrek. And it said the perfect time to begin the trail was in June. So I was finishing the Israel Trail towards the end of May. So it's just perfect timing. And then I rushed back to the UK, just got a visa because of Brexit. We can't stay in Europe for longer than 3 months. So I got a visa and I was on trail a few weeks later. And I think the time between hearing about the Hexatrek and setting foot on Hexatrek, probably less than 4 weeks. I think it was about 3.5 weeks in total. So I didn't plan for the hike. I'd never heard of the hike. I just heard of it and just went for it and went, I'm in good physical condition because I just completed a long distance hike in Israel and I was just ready to do it and off I went. So it hasn't popped up many places either. I'm spreading the message. That's one of the reasons I made videos on my YouTube channel about it as well, just to spread the word. And as the months go on, more and more people are hearing about it now. So each year, I think is sort of exponential. I think when I hiked it in 2023, I think it was about 150 people hiked it. And in 2024, so last year, I think 450 people hiked it. So I think each year as we go on, it's going to increase in size. So
I've watched your videos all the way through, and people can see those videos on YouTube if you put in Ryan's Next Adventure. And the Hexatrek website is hexatrek.com, and it's spelt how it sounds. And that gives you a bit more information about the actual trail itself. But it looks absolutely fantastic. And I was speaking to somebody else just recently, and we were talking about the PCT, AT, and the CDT, and they were saying basically it's just overrun now.
So it is one of the things that puts me off about going to do the Appalachian Trail. It's just the amount of people that are on the trail. There's a lot. It's very crowded. So
yeah, well, I mean, your video really puts across just how you enjoy the solitude and the mountain ranges. And there have been other videos I've watched from people that have also done it, and they've spent a lot of time socializing. So it's quite interesting. You can choose the way you want to walk. So we'll come on to that. So that's how you heard about it, and obviously very, very quick off the mark to get off the plane and jump on the bus and go straight to it. I thought it was very impressive.
Yeah, it was. I got my visa through the post. I was on a bus the next day. I was on trail the day after. So yeah, it was a quick turnaround.
So where were you traveling from then to get to the start point? Just tell us about the start point and the ease of getting to it.
Yeah, I went southbound, so I started in the north in Wissembourg. It wasn't too bad. I was in the UK, in Wiltshire. So I just got on a Flixbus, which is a low budget coach. Just went to London, and then I got from London to Strasbourg just on a bus. I think it was about 17 and a half hours on the bus. It went through Brussels. It was a big one. And then you can easily get the train from Strasbourg up to Wissembourg. It's about a 45-minute train. And then it's just, it's about 2 kilometres to walk to the trail. The trail actually starts about 2 kilometres north of Wissembourg and comes back down through Wissembourg. So I purposely went up a different road. And there's a little post box and a starter's book at the start as well. You can write your name and the date that you leave.
And it looks lovely. I mean, it looks at the start point in the middle of a vineyard, so it seemed like it would be pretty tricky to get started if it was in the middle of a vineyard.
Yeah, it's right on the border as well. So you're right on the French-German border, and you just straight off through a vineyard and into stage 1.
So how did it feel then? You arriving there, especially at short notice? I think you were just telling me earlier on that you don't like to research a trail too much. So you were obviously familiar with hiking distances, and I presume familiar with France in a basic way. So you're starting off. Your French, I think you admitted, wasn't particularly good. So
I mean, you say I wasn't even familiar with France, if I'm completely honest. I'd never been to France before. I've heard of the French Alps. I know of the Alps and the Pyrenees, but other than that, I didn't have a clue what I was doing or what I was getting into, if I'm perfectly honest. I did research in the sense of I knew that it was going through the Alps and the Pyrenees, and I knew the total elevation of the trail. I knew it was going to be very tough. I do have a lot of hiking experience. I'm very comfortable in that setting. I knew my gear was tried and tested. I was comfortable with everything I had on me. And with that becomes sort of some sort of confidence. So I just sort of, I was away. And what gave me a lot of the confidence as well was the Hexatrek app. So as soon as I found out about the Hexatrek, there's an app you can download. You can download all the offline maps. It tells you exactly where you are. It tells you where the resupply points are, water points, places you're allowed to bivouac or wild camp. So as soon as I saw this app and I looked at it, and that just gave me the confidence to go, okay, I can just follow this map now and just work my way through along the trail. So that was the main part of it. And I didn't want to see anything else that was coming up. I just wanted to explore it for myself. So
you didn't buy any guidebooks or local maps or whatever. You relied entirely on the app.
Yeah, the Hexatrek app was a must. You have to get that really to follow your way along the trail. I joined the Discord group as well. There's a Hexatrek Discord group. Lots of information in there, so you can ask questions about. So I sort of, as I set foot on the trail, you could have a glance at the Discord channel, and there's a few bits that pop up, like where the resupply points are. There's a few tricky bits like up ahead of the trail. So I sort of tackled those problems when I got to them, really. So.
And just to let people know, although the app is free to download from the various app stores, Google Play and Apple stores, and I think the first section of the first map is free, the rest of them are a nominal price that you pay.
Yeah, the whole bundle was $50.
For 3,000 kilometres, that's pretty cheap, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it goes to supporting the association as well, the Hexatrek Association. So
describe, if you would, then the first week or so, getting you sort of used to hiking in that environment, the sort of things you were coming across, the wild camping, that type of thing. How did it unfold for you? How did you get into your stride in that particular country on that particular trail?
Yeah, the first week was incredible. It was a bit of a whirlwind. It didn't quite hit me what I was doing because it was all such a sudden thing. The first week is beautiful. There's so many chateaus and old castles in the first 2 or 3 days. It's unbelievable. Like every few hours, I was coming across another old castle. So there's a lot of French villages and a lot of history in that part. So that was incredible. It was daunting. There was a lot of times I'd hike into a village and it just felt like a ghost town. And there's a little fountain in the middle. You can resupply and get water, and there's just nobody there. It was an incredible experience. But I'm quite stubborn. When I commit to a trail, that's it. I'm in, and I just keep going. So there were a few times where I wouldn't say lonely. That's not the right word. Maybe a little bit of anxiety, but that's a good thing with a trail of this size. I just took it one day at a time, and I think in the first week I did meet a couple of other people that were hiking the trail as well, which was really nice. As soon as I met someone that was doing it, they just did stage 1, but they were still sort of doing the Hexatrek, which was nice, and that kind of alleviated a bit of anxiety. There was someone else doing the trail, and it turns out I'd only ever meet one other person on the whole 3,000 kilometer hike, and the rest of it was just on my own. So it was. I thought I'd bump into a few more people doing the Hexatrek, but no, it was very quiet out there. It was very, very quiet.
And what was the environment like? What were you actually walking through, the landscape? Were you going straight up mountains, or were you going through wooded lowland?
Yeah, stage 1 is the Vosges. So there's a lot of vineyards. It's not flat. It's sort of, but it's not the mountains. But there are climbs, sort of 200-300 meter climbs. It's good preparation for the Alps. A lot of ski slopes. You go through lots of ski areas in the Vosges. Like I said, there's lots of castles. I was very thankful that a lot of the trail in stage 1 is through forests, big green forests. So it's very shady because it was very hot. I set off on the trail on the 22nd of June. So it was very much in the summer. It was very, very hot. But yeah, I was thankful for that shade. It's incredible. I've never hiked through much of Europe. I haven't done much hiking in Europe, so it's a great way to explore a country, just getting on a trail and hiking.
You're listening to the award-winning outdoorstation.co.uk, sharing the stories of ordinary people and self-powered travel.
I think it'd be worthwhile telling people when they view your videos, the one thing that they will notice is you made the active decision not to take any cooking gear. So everything that you ate and sourced, you had to source at the villages. We'll talk about gear and things towards the end, but in that particular case, when I completed all your videos and went through, that it actually wasn't a problem sourcing water and food, apart from obviously 23 was very hot. So at the hottest times, you had some tough days trying to find water. But just explain a bit about the reaction to hikers coming through. Were the local people happy to see you, friendly to see you, and helping you on the way?
All my experiences, everyone was really friendly. So the Hexatrek, it goes along existing hiking trails. So there's not like, the Hexatrek is a brand new hike, but it's not a brand new hiking trail, if that makes sense. It's just they've connected up loads of GR trails So it's a continuous hike from A to B. So yeah, a lot of people were used to seeing hikers. Stage 1 comes down on I think it's called the GR5, which is an existing hiking trail. So a lot of the villages that you're going through, they're well equipped for hikers. There's like always, most villages have a little seating area, a fountain where you can drink from, which I wasn't used to. In the UK, we don't really have that, so that was really nice. I learned very, very basic French of how to ask for water. A lot of the time I was just holding up an empty water bottle. You could see I was a hiker. And I just sort of say, "Eau s'il vous plaît," which is water, please. And they're very friendly, very, very friendly. All my experiences with the locals, a lot of them don't speak English, and they were just very helpful to fill up my water. So yeah, I didn't experience anything bad. Everyone was very friendly, and yeah, I felt like the trail was equipped for hikers because it was an existing hiking trail. So
they're established and used to seeing hikers come through. So it's linking the GRs together, as you were saying. And what about, I mean, you wanted to hike the trail, so you were disciplined to try and stay on it as much as possible. But if people wanted to do this and stay at campsites, because most villages or towns have got a local municipal campsite, did you find that there was plenty of options?
yeah, there are plenty of campsites along the route. Most towns had a campsite. There's I mean, most of the Hexatrek stage 2 and 3 is through the Alps, and you have all the mountain refuges along the trail. Most days there'll be 1 or 2 mountain refuges. Yeah, there's a lot of accommodation along the trail. I mean, the people that set up the trail, they do say a part of the experience is sort of, I call it wild camping. In France, it's called bivouacking, which you just set your tent up in the mountains. A part of the experience is just setting your tent up along the trail. You could do it just in campsites. It would be difficult to do a campsite every single night, but it is certainly possible to do campsites quite often along the trail. But a part of it is wild camping, and that's what I mainly did, is wild camp along the trail as much as I could.
Grand. Well, we'll go into I've got the figures and dates and numbers and things. As I say, we'll do that towards the end if we may. So that was the first week. Then let's move forward and say a month. You know, can you remember where you were in sort of a month later, 30 odd days, 40 days into it? The terrain changing dramatically at all, or is it still fairly the same?
So stage 1 took around 3 weeks, I believe. It took me 21 or 22 days. So after a month, I'd completed stage 1. You then get a ferry over Lake Geneva, and then you're straight into stage 2. So I'm not sure if we've mentioned that the Hexatrek is split into 6 different stages, which makes it nice to break it down. So stage 2, you start going into the Northern Alps. So yeah, the scenery completely changes. All of a sudden, you're just up in the mountains, and you're hiking up to 2,500 meters up into the mountains. I think the highest I went on the Hexatrek, it was just under 3,000 meters, was the highest point of the Hexatrek. And of course, you can go off and climb other mountains and do little side quests, as I call them, along the trail. But yeah, the scenery after a month completely changed as you get into the Alps. It feels like a completely different trail. It is incredible.
It looked tougher, certainly from the video. Would you say if somebody went out there to do the second stage and they went cold, as it were, and used that as the starting point, if they'd say done stage 1 previously, do you think stage 1 really helps warm up your leg muscles to tackle the Alps? Because it looked hard.
Yeah, so most people start from the north in Wissembourg and come down through the Vosges, which is southbound. You can go northbound and start on the other side, which is Hyundai, I believe it is. The problem with going southbound is you're straight up into the Pyrenees mountains. On day 3, you'll be climbing 1,000-meter mountains, so you have to be ready for that. But you do get a lot more flexibility with the weather. So I felt like quite a lot of pressure to keep pushing along the trail, because I was very aware that in October I'd still be in the Pyrenees, and I wanted to complete the trail before the weather turned in the Pyrenees. I'd say I started the trail 2 or 3 weeks later than most people. They advised to start at the beginning of June. I started on the 22nd of June, so I was behind the main pack of people, and I didn't want to be hiking in the Pyrenees into November because the weather does turn. Turned out I was incredibly lucky with the weather in the Pyrenees, and it was 30-degree heat wave in October in the Pyrenees Mountains, which is unheard of. So I didn't have to, I wouldn't say I rushed the trail. I just felt that pressure to keep going to try and not be in the Pyrenees in November. So I would say that, yeah, the Vosges of stage one, it really does set you up for the mountains. There's lots of climbing, but not as high as the Alps. So you get 20 to 25 days of prepping your body for the Alps, because it is brutal in the Alps.
So coming back to resupply again, what was the longest length of time that you couldn't resupply? So how much food did you have to carry with you? 3 days, 4 days?
So the longest resupply was 7 days. My bag was quite heavy. It was very, very heavy. And that was the trail actually goes into Andorra for 2 or 3 days, which I didn't know before I did the trail. I didn't realize the trail went into Andorra. I didn't have any phone signal or anything because Andorra's not in the EU, so my phone didn't work. But luckily I found a hotel, stayed the night. That's when I learned about the resupply, which I can't remember the name of the town that's in the middle of Andorra, but you basically got to get a couple of buses, get to the shop, and then this one little shop you have to resupply for 7 days. And you go into one of the most beautiful parts of the Pyrenees. So I was counting calories. That's how I resupply. So I sort of go, okay, 7 days, I need about 4,000 calories a day. I need about 28 to 30,000 calories. And that is all I do then. I look at the food and go, right, what's high in calories? Because I need to try and carry 30,000 calories in this resupply. So I just walking around the shop, just going, right, what's got a lot of calories in? Nuts, slabs of dark chocolate. And yeah, I was just trying to just add up and make sure I had the amount of calories for 7 days. It wasn't easy. And my bag, as I said, was incredibly heavy. But as soon as I start hiking and start eating that food, it gets lighter as I go along. So, but yeah, 7 days is the longest food carry, and it is very tough.
Yeah, the pleasure works both ways, doesn't it? The bag gets lighter and you enjoy the food. So on reflection then, looking at it, do you think it was a wise choice to approach your food and nutrition that way? Would it have made any difference to you? Would it have been better to have had a basic cooking system?
Yeah, it's a question I ask myself a lot. I did meet one hiker on the Hexatrek, and they had a little stove, and they were doing mashed potato and stuff, but they were just cooking once a day, and some days they weren't even cooking because they were quite a lightweight backpacker. They had a little stove. It was quite a small stove, and I think I hiked with them for 4 or 5 days, and they used their stove like 2 or 3 times and 2 and 3 evenings just to make some mashed potato or a tiny bit of pasta. And for me, I was just like, well, I don't use a stove when I hike, and something I'm used to. I think carrying the stove and cooking a bit of couscous or pasta doesn't really add anything for me. It just takes time to cook. I like just having some wraps or cheese wraps, just make them and just eat them and then go. That's just what I like doing. It's probably not the right way to for some people, but it's what I prefer. And then I don't have to worry about resupplying a gas canister, which can be quite tricky along the Hexatrek. Depends if you've got a click stove or a screw stove, and then you've got to try and find that. So I just wanted to just eliminate that problem and just not hike with a stove, and then get warm food when I get into towns. So every time I hiked past a pizza shop in a town, I get a pizza. Or just eat in a few restaurants if I'm really missing some hot food. I'd say the majority of the trail was 40 plus degree heat. It was a crazy heat wave in 2023 in France. So the last thing I wanted was hot food. So I was quite happy to not have a stove for the majority, or for all of the trail.
It sounds fairly wise, actually, and under the circumstances, and certainly, as you rightly point out, the resupply and actually finding a shop that's open when you need it to be open, that has the right gas canister. Certainly, from my experience in France, they're all slightly different for different reasons. So, coming out of the Alps, then, before you get round to the Pyrenees, did the landscape obviously levelled out a bit more? Is it still as undulating as before the northern section 1, or is it completely different again?
So stage 4, when you come out the Alps, it is completely different again. It did level out. It was a very fast section. I completed stage 4 in 2 weeks, 14 days, which is on the quicker side for that stage. It did feel like a desert, and it does look like a desert as well. That was the hottest section. I was hiking through that in August. There's just cactus everywhere. It did feel like I was hiking through a desert. It really did. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful section, and it was nice to change the scenery from the mountains. As beautiful as the mountains are, it was a grind. So I did enjoy stage 4 quite a lot. It was just the heat that was the challenge there. But I think it was called the Ardèche Gorge, or the Ardèche Valley, which was an unbelievable section. It's just so beautiful and quite unique to the Hexatrek. There's a kayak section as well. So for the whole day, I just had a kayak going down about 20 kilometers of the river, which was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that looked lovely. I enjoyed that on your video, actually, and I should imagine it was a nice rest for the old leg muscles to sit back and let the river take the strain. But of course, you were under a time limit as well, weren't you? Because by the time you started it, you had to finish it by a certain time, otherwise you would have lost your bag.
Yeah, so there's one thing to mention. If you're going to do the kayak section, try and get there at 8 a.m. in the morning, not 10:30. So yeah, it was a bit of a get my head down and get down the river. They nearly turned me away at the start. They nearly didn't let me go down because you can only do it in a certain amount of time. But yeah, it was nice to have a break from the legs, but I realized how your upper body does really struggle. Because I'm not strong. So when you're hiking all day, you have really strong legs, but your upper body is not very strong at all. So that was really tough on the arms, but it was nice to change the scenery. It was nice to do something a bit unique and a bit different on a through hike.
And that wraps up part 1 of our conversation with Ryan Archer on his bold, unplanned journey across France on the Hexatrek. In part 2, we dive deeper into the practical side of long-distance hiking in France, from adapting to local customs and the famously relaxed opening hours to the gear choices that held up and those that didn't. We also talk about daily costs, and of course, Ryan shares what stood out as the best part of the entire adventure. So stay tuned and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. Until then, keep your pack light and your spirit lighter. And as always, take care out there. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorsStation.co.uk.